When I received the Bible, it was in very poor condition, which is hardly surprising considering its age. Although it had its original leather cover, the photos showed the corners of both boards were badly damaged, with large cracks in the leather, and, as you can see, there is a large scar on the front cover. There were holes on the front and back covers indicating missing hardware, and the cover does not seem to fit very well. At some time, it appears that one of the joints failed and the front of the boards had become detached. As shown in the picture, the pages at the spine edge were heavily damaged, and the linen lining supporting the spine had almost totally deteriorated. The whole thing was tastefully decorated with 253 years of dirt and grime. The cords holding the covers to the text block have totally rotted away. As I examined the Bible, the end bands came away in my hands. They are in terrible condition and will need to be replaced. Much of the stitching is partially or wholly missing. The pages in the beginning and the end of the Bible had completely become unbound and were badly damaged, and the blank pages normally found at the beginning and the end were missing. This paper was, and mostly still is, highly acidic, which has caused the worst damage to the edges of the paper. There was also some loose documentation, helpfully held together with masking tape. On closer inspection, these appear to be the pages that are missing from the front and the back of the text block. The first action was to take the Bible apart. Covers were removed and the text block is clamped to prevent further damage. A poultice of wheat paste is applied. This serves to soften the old glue, and once softened, the old glue and dirt is carefully scraped away. A second lot of poultice is applied to remove any stubborn bits missed the first time. The stitching has deteriorated so far that I decide to resew the book. So I begin by separating the sections. Each one was carefully opened and any remains of original thread is removed. After separating the sections, I begin by cleaning them by gently brushing away dust with a soft brush or with a slightly stiffer brush for more stubborn dirt, and I use a spatula to remove food and other nasties. Pencil marks are gently removed using a cotton bud, as the paper is too fragile for an eraser. There is a great deal of moisture damage and a considerable amount of mold and mildew, which I will treat with a solution of 70% isopropyl alcohol. Mold and mildew, if left untreated, will regenerate at the first sign of any moisture. In books, and especially in large books, a binder finds many interesting things. Hair, bugs, lots of bugs. I'm not sure what this is. Bug eggs, or worse, dirt, remains of somebody's lunch, old cards, and a pin. I must admit, this one had me guessing until I found this. So obviously a previous owner was a smoker. There was also a great deal of damage from where insects had dined out on the pages. Here we see where a page has been torn out of the book. I find evidence of previous repairs and also see where pages have been aggressively trimmed in the past. This will account for the fact that the covers are not a good fit. The next step is to remove creases in the paper by careful brushing. Stubborn creases are ironed out on a very low heat setting. The front page is in worse condition than the rest of the book and is so fragile that I decide to use a bath. Washing paper can be beneficial, but it is not without risk, and I only do it in extreme cases. In the bath, the paper is supported by a non-woven support sheet. Here the paper is placed between pages of blotting paper and allowed to air dry. It is then mounted on a sheet of Japanese tissue, after which it is rejoined to the corresponding page. By holding the pages up to the light, it is easy to spot the areas needing repair, which are not always visible. Almost every folded sheet in the book needed its gutter replaced or repaired. A narrow strip of Japanese tissue is pasted across the gutter area to replace lost paper and to offer a strong point for resewing. I use Japanese tissue for its strength when wet, as well as the fact that when dry, it's almost invisible as well as transparent. The rest of the paper was brittle, with occasional tears. Tiny tears can soon become big problems. A few areas of loss. These areas of loss also need replacing. If the loss was significant, it was replaced with paper from old books, dyed to match the original pages. Not all areas are what they seem. By turning the page, I find the missing piece. Most pages had folded corners, some large and some minute. If not unfolded, these corners would eventually break off. Very weak creases were consolidated with Klugel G. Of the loose pages, many had to be rejoined, as they had become completely separated. With very large areas, a double layer of tissue was used. Here, I am removing an old repair, so the wording underneath is exposed. This will be redone with tissue. Gutters that are still whole are strengthened with a coat of metal cellulose made up with isopropyl alcohol. While this looks bad when wet, it will dry without leaving any further staining. Badly damaged edges are repaired with strips of Japanese tissue. Aggressive trimming in the past has left me with no room to further trim the edges, so tissue it is. The missing half to the torn page has not been found, so a new gutter has been made with tissue to allow it to be sewn into the text block. Once the pages have been repaired, they were dried and recollated into their sections. With over 1,200 pages to repair in this way, this was by far the longest part of the repair process. The text block will now spend 24 hours in the book press to reduce some of the swelling from the added tissue. While I am waiting, I turn my attention to the cover. The original leather was in very poor condition, having become extremely stiff and brittle. Even with careful handling, pieces just fell off at the slightest touch, and there was much evidence of red rot. There were several sheets of paper stuck tightly to the inside of each board, forming paste downs. Some of these were undoubtedly added at some stage during the later life of the Bible. On closer inspection, these turned out to be more of the missing blank pages mentioned earlier. The paste down on the front cover included a library label, and this needed to be retained. I removed these pages one at a time by softening with paste poultice and a great deal of patience. I don't know what sort of glue they use, but I wish I had some. When I came to the back cover, I was rewarded with a surprise. Remember our missing page? This was exciting. I also found a piece of the board was broken. This was not so exciting. After the end papers had been lifted as much as possible, the next step was to consolidate the letter using Klugel G. The break on the edge of one board was repaired. Once the broken board had been repaired, they were lightly sanded and the letter turnings were trimmed to an even more appearance. Weak and broken parts of the leather were lined with tissue. The spine was separated from the front and back as it was no longer flexible and could not be used in its current form. I used the original holes in the board to make a template to position the tapes as they will be used in securing the boards back onto the text block. With the template, new sewing holes were punched. The text block was then sewn by hand onto 5 linen tapes, and new blank pages made from archival paper and dyed to match were added to the front and back of the text block. The completed text block was once again returned to the book press overnight. In the meantime, I made some new headbands. The spine is lined with Japanese tissue to strengthen the backbone and provide a reversible barrier between the original text block and subsequent spine linings. This is in case the work ever has to be removed for any reason. The spine was then lined with archival craft paper and then linen. The linen overlap will be glued to the cover boards to provide a strong hinge. After this, new headbands were glued into position. This was followed by a hollow cardboard tube, also known as an Oxford hollow. This will allow the book to be opened without having to bend the spine. The boards are lined with archival paper to provide better adhesion, and the linen flap is now pasted to the board to provide a hinge. Some Japanese paper is painted to be used as a new spine. A sponge gives it a more leather-like appearance. This is added to the spine and secured under the edge of the original leather. The text block is reclamped and weights are added to the spine to allow the adhesive to fully dry. The letter turnings are now pasted in position. A new rice paper joint is then applied on top of the end paper, adding further strength to the hinge and to mask the cords and the tapes. It is finished with new hand-painted decorative end paper. The library label is pasted back in. The original letter spine is now glued to the new paper one. It is tied down for 24 hours to ensure thorough adhesion. The repairs have caused considerable swelling, so the book goes back into the book press. It will stay there for 2 weeks. It makes a significant difference. I now check each page to make sure I have not missed any repairs and that none of the pages are stuck together. It is also important to check that the book can open and close properly. Small areas on the spine and cover are painted to blend in. New hardware is attached by bands made with some of the leather that I trimmed from the inside cover. And here is the finished product. I didn't want the Bible to look too new, as it has been through a lot and its scars and imperfections are part of its history. This was a significant and time-consuming project, but very worthwhile and very satisfying, because the Bible was so old and it deserved to be preserved. I like to retain as much of the original book as possible. Anything that can be retained in the restoration will be retained. I learned so much from this project, and it was extremely satisfying to bring it to completion.